Hi, this is Kshitij, the co-founder of the UnderGrads. Today we have made a video on reservation for you, and we really sincerely hope that you like the video, and we urge you to subscribe as well as comment your opinions of the same.
Hi guys, so today we at the undergrads are here to discuss an issue which is pressing to all of us, and we all come across it at least at some point in our careers or lives if we have stayed in India, and that would be reservation. But however, it is important that we understand reservation is not only restricted to memes or jokes or something which we cry about before an exam. Rather, it is something which has a lot of social construct, and it is a policy pursued by the government in a sense to ensure that there's inclusivity of people in the population, and its impacts are widespread and spans over a vast area. So the reason we are making this video is that it comes in light of the Maratha Reservation Judgement, which answers a question as to what reservation is in contemporary times and what it stands for. So just to give a brief introduction to what reservation is in India, I would like to go back to the time pre-independence and pre-constitution, when the Government of India Act was being formulated, where the Muslim population demanded a separate electoral vote, which was done by the Muslim League during that particular time. So because they believed that the Muslims were underrepresented in a country which was dominated and had a majority Hindu population. However, when we go to a post-constitutional time and during the Constituent Assembly's debates, we can see that Dr. Ambedkar pushed for reservation to come and made very compelling arguments as to why it has to be included in our society, considering the fact that India is a very diverse country, having numerous people and numerous groups of people who are socially as well as educationally backward and who needed special privileges and special attention to be pushed forward to ensure that they also are included in normal society. With respect to the the judiciary's actions on the same, we can see that the Indra Savani judgment is the landmark judgment when it comes to this particular instance. The Indra Savani judgment played a very key role, and in its wordings made a very key aspect clear. That is, the political will of reservation as well as the social will of reservation are two different things. The social will of reservation would ideally be the will to include people and to ensure that there is the upliftment of the socially and educationally backward people, whereas the political will would be the political appeasement of people to ensure that the political needs of a particular interest group is satisfied. So with that being said, the Indra Savani judgment capped reservations that can be implemented by a state at 50%, unless there were certain extraordinary circumstances as highlighted in 810 paragraph of the particular judgment, which stated that only in situations wherein people or groups are required to be included in certain sections, and that comes over and above the 50%, only then can there be a reservation above this 50%. This 50% reservation cap and the Indra Savani judgment was revisited in the Maratha judgment. And I would like to give a brief overview as to what happened in the Maratha judgment and Maratha reservation judgment. So the Maratha reservation judgment sought to reserve certain number of seats and certain number of resources for the Maratha population in Maharashtra. So in 2014, the erstwhile Maharashtra government led by Devendra Fadnavis reserved 16% of the seats for Marathas in education as well as job sectors in Maharashtra. However, this was not taken well by the Bombay High Court, which said that, look, we need to put a stay order on this, and this doesn't seem right, and hence constituted the Gaikwad Commission. So the Gaikwad Commission was a body set up on recommendation of the Bombay High Court to see the feasibility of a Maratha reservation in Maharashtra. The Gaikwad Committee later in 2017 stated that yes, a Maratha reservation is feasible in this particular sense, and gave the same to the Bombay High Court. The Bombay High Court, seeing this particular committee give its judgment, the Maharashtra government again went ahead and created an act to reserve 16% of the seats for Marathas in jobs as well as education sector. However, the Bombay High Court again was not satisfied with this and said that it is only fair if the reservation is 12% and 13% in education and job sectors respectively. And this again led to contention and led to numerous petitioners such as Jayantlal Patil, who went to the Supreme Court taking the same issue, where the Supreme Court in 2020 looked into the matter and said that it was not, a three-bench panel looked into the matter and said that it was not in its power to decide, and hence constituted a five-bench panel who in 2021, that is about a week ago, decided who decided that the Maratha judgment was unconstitutional and was not necessary. So with that being said, we need to understand reservation, and we need to understand reservation from the point that it is not a mere social aspect to appeasing people or to uplift people. Rather, it also has a lot of legal as well as constitutional backing in its entirety. So with that being said, we will not delve into the technicalities of uh, what the case holds or what the reservation case actually held. Rather, we will delve into the implications of what reservation holds and the refusal or the acceptance of such judgment and what precedent it would set. And before we delve into that, I would like to give a disclaimer stating that all statements and opinions here are merely reflective and it has not been endorsed by anybody in any form. So that being said, yes, there are numerous legal precedents and legal processes which are involved in reservation. What are these legal processes?
Right. I think so far we have fairly established how reservations have evolved in this country. And if even we being very specific to the Maratha reservation, you have laid down the chronology, what happened and how it happened. So I think this present judgment has highlighted two broad aspects which are not just specific to Maharashtra or Maratha reservation, but is applicable to all the states that are present and would are broad aspects of reservation. That is what I believe. The first issue was, which was also raised as one of the contentions that the state has, was whether the 102nd Amendment is constitutionally valid. Now, before I go to the issues that they were raised, I'll just give a brief what exactly is 102nd Amendment. So 102nd Amendment introduced a few articles. Those articles basically gave a constitutional authority to the National Commission of the Backward Classes. So the first article was Article 338B. So it defined how the commission would be appointed, how many members will be there, who will head the commission, etc. and etc. The second important article, which was also in contention by majority of the states and even the state government of Maharashtra, which was Article 342A. Now, this particular article basically defines the process through which any caste or community can be identified and can be added to the list of the National Commission for Backward Classes. Now, the process was something which was in question because, as per the process, the president is someone who identifies the same with consultation with the governor of the state. So one gets an idea that over here, the state has merely recommendatory powers. So this was in question. So this was the issue which was raised by the state, stating that this is something which violates or vitiates the federal structure of the country. The second broader issue which was raised was that since, as we have seen, the Maratha reservation exceeded the 50% cap which was implemented in the Indira Sawhney judgment. So the total reservation that was to be observed was 68%. And hence there was a contention that which was raised, which was, is there a need to revisit the 50% cap that was implemented by the Indira Sawhney judgment? Now, the Supreme Court has clarified this position in the Indira Sawhney judgment as well as various other constitutional judgments that there is no specific need to revisit the 50% cap. However, if there are certain extraordinary conditions that exist in a state, and if the states are able to prove that extraordinary conditions, then they can increase the percentage of 50 of the limit of 50% and provide reservations, but that have to be justified. Now, coming back to the 102nd Amendment, apart from what the Supreme Court said, I think first of all, it's important for us to understand that it was not a new invention. So if you'll observe the National Commission for SC or National Commission for ST, they have followed the same process where a president is someone who identifies and the states are merely in recommending powers. So at least in my opinion, that contention was not very much reasonable. And even the Supreme Court in its operating judgment, so there were 5 judges, out of that 3 judges have clarified that it is not in any way violating the federal structure of the country. So this being said, I think after both the issues, now the states have clear way or have a clarity on the vagueness that was created in terms of identification of a caste or a community. Now they have two options. Either they, through the help of their governor, consult this with the president and then merely recommending any caste or community to the commission. The commission has the power to decide the same. The second option is that if they're able to make a case where they prove that there are certain extraordinary conditions that would help them. So, for example, in the Maratha Reservation, they could not do that. And this is one of the reasons the Supreme Court mentioned that the reasons that the Gaikwad Commission is providing, or even the state government is providing, are merely fundamental grounds of reservation. It's not at all proving that there are certain extraordinary conditions, and hence we need to exceed the limit of 50%. And hence the Supreme Court also recommended that you go under the 50% cap through the first process. So I think this is the legal implication that this judgment has laid down. But apart from that, Kshitij, do you think that, at least in my observation, I have observed this, that due to reservation or the debate around reservation, there is this unity of the country which is being compromised. Now, we are not concerned whether we are Indians, or we are not looking at it as a nationwide identity. We look at how my identity as from my community or from my caste can earn me certain privileges. So do you think that's the case, in our unities in any way compromised due to political expediency?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. So when we talk about reservation, firstly, we need to understand what our forefathers actually envisioned reservation to be. So reservation, according to what the Constituent Assembly and Dr. Ambedkar actually envisioned, was to uplift people from a certain level of poverty or certain level of backwardness, if I may say, to come and compete with the same level as the so-called forward communities. But again, since the caste system and since the community-based discrimination in India was so entrenched within communities, we see that each community as a whole is actually backward, and not just like 2 or 3 people in many instances. Again, the definition of creamy layer would be those who have been uplifted, which has also been spoken about in the Indra Savari judgment, the Mandal Commission, and also the Gaikwad Commission in its particular reports. But we see that entire communities as a whole, swaths of people in the communities are actually impoverished and actually are left backward in this particular sense. So we see that it is not possible to only sideline half a community and keep the other half. And this is something which has led to a division of communities into backward and forward classes in general in a particular society. But again, when we talk about what reservations have developed into now today, it is far from what our forefathers envisioned of uplifting people from poverty. Rather, it has become something which is which includes a national identity of equality, as well as versus the communal identity of what equality is. So again, to understand what reservation is, we need to see it from two different angles. First is a positive angle, which our forefathers envisioned, that is to include people, and hence reservation is made to ensure that there are certain privileges for everybody in a particular community. So ensure that they are uplifted from poverty and they are equal as everybody else, and equals compete amongst equals. But whereas what we see reservation to become today is a negative aspect of reservation. Now, the negative aspect basically means the exclusion aspect. Now, Yash, today if I come to you and I tell you, Yash, you are my favorite person, or you need little help, I take this chocolate or take these books. Obviously, you will do better, and everybody around you also would want that special attention. Now, a mother can't deny special attention to a child. Cannot deny special attention to a child, but all children are equal to her. Now, a certain child may have special needs and hence special attention in this particular instance. And that is the same with all the citizens in our country as well. So the negative aspect, but what we see today is that this negative aspect has been politicized, and the political angle comes to this. Now, Yash, you see that there are certain communities which are being targeted in general. So, for example, the Maratha community, which has 33% in Maharashtra, or the Patidar community, Patidar community, which has a sizable amount of people in Gujarat, the Jat community, which has a sizable amount of people in Haryana. All of these people translate into a vote bank, and appeasing these people with, say, reservations by saying that we will give you special treatment, only saying obviously will appease them and ensure that the votes come to them. But the implication of this is much more far-fetched. This basically shows that the idea of reservation has moved beyond, yes, I want to keep certain seats aside only for the purpose of uplifting people from a level of poverty, to the idea that I am Jat, I have a considerable position here. And hence I should get a particular seat, or I am Maratha, I should get a particular seat because I am part of a particular state. Now, the idea of this is that if you give special provisions to people, and that can be anything, for example, even subsidies, educational grants, or anything, it may be anything, which may also include seat reservations in education institutes and jobs. Which community will not want it? And hence, in this particular time, you see that every community will come forward and say, I am backward, I need help, I need this particular benefit because I am socially and educationally backward. So it becomes very difficult to define this, and hence we see that communities now encircle with one another, and this leads to a paradoxical situation wherein the very reservation system that was created to ensure that there is no divide and no inequality among groups and other communities in our society today is creating the very divide, because these communities are vouching for themselves and not seeing the larger aspect of what reservation stands for. So, do you have anything to add to this, Yash? I mean, this is what I believe, and do you have
Yeah.
anything to add to this?
No, no, absolutely. So first of all, because we are discussing two aspects. First, the original intention of reservations and how Dr. Ambedkar viewed this. Now, I think it's a twofold argument that I would like to put forward over here. Now, when we talk about the intention of reservations, I think it's very sad to see today that people are looking reservation through a restricted lens of only privileges. I think that is something which was not the original intention of reservation. The idea was that there shall be unity in the society and equality, but for that it's important that every person or every individual of the society shall have an similar or shall have the same starting line. And the history that we have shared now, I don't think so anyone could deny this, but there has been certain sections of the society that have faced certain, if one could call that, persecution or problems or injustice, because of which today they are socially backward, or from the last 70, 50 years they are backward. And hence the idea of reservation was that they could be uplifted and could be brought to the same line. Unfortunately, today what we are seeing is that I can see that one argument that I'll cut the head to fit the head. That is, so I can see that you have certain privileges. Now, irrespective of what difference is there between our social surrounding, I also want that particular privilege. Now, what I'll do is that I'll force my political incumbent to act upon it and to bring certain legislations or do something about it. I don't think so. That is what the vision was when reservation was implemented. Second issue, I think something which is highly misquoted when people quote Dr. Ambedkar, and that is the duration of reservation. And people say that, Ambedkar just wanted that reservation should exist for a few years or for this number of generations, and it's not a permanent solution. Now, I totally agree that he meant that it's not a permanent solution, but that can only happen. What he actually meant was that we should reach a point in our society where caste identity is irrelevant to us. So we are not denying caste system, but that should not become a problem for intercaste marriages, or your identity should not become a problem for intercaste dining, right? So that is the point where finally we can come, and where the society could accept that reservation is no more required. I think this is the reason Ambedkar also wanted that it should be there for a successive number of generations where the society reaches to this position. Now, having said what reservation meant, I think the most bizarre or the most failed combination is the political expediency and reservation. I think that is something which we cannot combine in any state, because that leads to excess reservation. And that is again a violation of Article 14 and 21 to people who are not getting reservation. So that is a very deadly combination, and that is something that the political parties, and again I really appreciate the present judgment, because that has again showed the way that that is something which you cannot do. Now, having set aside the political compulsions that the political parties have and the legal implication that we have discovered, Kshitij, do you think that in any way excess reservation specially, or reservation in general, targets the skill of the skill force, or it compromises the skill or the talent pool? And this is the reason that some of the people or some of the individuals of the society have certain form of enmity, and if not enmity is a far-fetched word, then certain form of disagreement with the idea of reservations. Do you think that's the case?
Absolutely, Yash. So again, revisiting what our forefathers envisioned reservation to be was that to ensure that the reserved classes or the socially and educationally backward classes have the same level of competency as as the forward classes or the unreserved classes. Now, it was to ensure that there is a certain talent that is inculcated by these reserved classes to ensure that they are uplifted, and then they come into the unreserved category and compete with the unreserved category because they have been uplifted and now they are a lot better off to do. However, when we see the idea through the lens of excessive reservation, now if the 50% cap, as let's assume there's a breach of the 50% cap as envisioned in the Indra Savani judgment, and it goes to a very high percentage, say 98%, where only 2% of the population, say is competing in the unreserved category, it becomes very difficult as to how to get new talent. Now, the socially and educationally backward classes are socially and educationally backward in the truest sense, which means that they have lacked education, they have lacked skills, and they probably are the first or second generation to actually get certain jobs in this particular sector, which means that they're not very well adept with what a particular skill is. And now, to ensure that a workforce is very efficient, the most meticulous and the meritorious is the one who's supposed to get a particular job or a particular sector. But if this does not take place, obviously it compromises on the skill force a little bit. However, if it's 98% or a very high percent of reservation, this leads to a huger problem or a bigger problem wherein the workforce now does not have the skills to compete not only within itself but in the outside sector as well. Apart from this, there would be two more problems. Now we need to understand that the caste system and the community system is very deeply entrenched in society today. And when we have high amounts of reservation, say especially for communities which may not be completely socially or educationally backward, or may not be the lower castes, if I may very crudely say. So in these particular sections, there may be certain jobs which are reserved in which are not of the say the level or the stature of these upper class communities or upper class communities, and hence these seats would be vacant or these jobs would be vacant, and hence, and since the reservation, the high amounts of reservation as established earlier leads to competition within the community and not in the general Indian workforce sense or generally among citizens, it leads to an issue wherein there would be a shortage of workforce. The second thing is it would further entrench the caste system as to where it is. Now, the caste system is something which is already deeply entrenched in our society, and the very idea of the reservation was to remove the basis of where people were hired on the basis of their surname, and people are actually hired on the basis of their talent, and the surname business should not be there. Now, if you have high levels of reservations for individual communities, say the Jats have a reservation, the Brahmins have a reservation, the Dalits have a reservation, the Marathas have a reservation. If everybody has their individual reservation, now the idea of getting a job is not my merit. It is not my talents. It is not what I actually stand for. Rather, it is because I'm Maratha and it is because I'm Jat. And this psychologically will also have an effect because see, people will be like, look, because I'm a Jat and because I have Jat reservation, I got reservation. Because I'm a Kannadiga and I'm in Karnataka, I get a Karnataka domicile, and hence I get this particular seat. Now the scope of merit is thrown out over here, and the part of reservation is to ensure that that is minimal. Actually, that is minimal to cap the amount of talent which has to learn compared to the talent which is already there, and hence the talent can learn, and the scope of the regeneration is actually better because now these are a new workforce, and the reserve classes become a new workforce because they are trained, and then they also add to the workforce. That is what the major idea was. But if you see this excess reservation over the vicious cycle, it would become a vicious cycle rather than a virtuous cycle of removing people, because it would again be deeply communally entrenched. So do you have anything to say about this, Yash?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely believe in the idea that excess reservation cannot be in any way justified, or else you'll have to, as even the judgment mentioned, you'll have to bring extraordinary conditions into picture. And this is the reason that 50% creates a balance. But in order to address the argument that is there for general reservation, now, unfortunately, there is this one argument that you'll observe in the society at present, which is that we should eradicate the caste-based reservation system at present. I think that is a very far-fetched argument, and we are ignoring a very big mistake. Now, I don't think so anyone over here, all our viewers, or no one can at present in the Indian society deny this fact that there is certain form of discrimination that is still going on in the areas of our country. You come out of your urban homes and you'll see that there is certain recognizable discrimination that takes place. Now, if you're denying this fact, or if you're refusing this fact, you're practically giving certain powers to certain people of the society to exploit certain sections of the society, and eventually this leads to their eviction from the dharmic fold, or from the wherever, or from whatever religion that they belong to, or even from the society at large. So I think that is the first thing that we should stop doing. Instead, we should find solutions in the society apart from reservations, where we can actually solve this issue. That is the first step that is very important for us to do. You cannot impose the idea that reservations should be eradicated. It should come from the society. When tomorrow the society, or the sections of the society, especially those are socially or educationally backward at present, tomorrow when they themselves realize that they are at the equitable footing, they themselves would give up the idea of reservation. But exhorting them to give up the reservation would not be a very reasonable idea to perform. Having said that, I think it's very important that we all recognize that reservation is a social necessity today. But if it is conflated with the idea of political expediency and the idea of excess reservation, that it becomes a trouble and chaos for the society. I think that's something that we should take away from this conversation.
Absolutely. So that being said, I think we have concluded our video here today. And one thing we can take from here is that we need to understand reservation not only from the narrow lens of us giving up seats, or people with privileges giving up seats, or giving up certain other privileges they may have. Rather, it is something which is much larger and required in today's Indian context, considering the fact that India is a diverse country with a diverse group of people who may be socially and educationally backward. It is also important for us to understand that the politicization of reservation is a dangerous concoction and would eventually implode within itself, considering the fact that it would lead to somewhere we do not want to go to. An excessive reservation again has been checked, but this check needs to remain in order to ensure that there is some sort of sanctity to what reservation actually stands for. With that being said, I thank you all for coming here to watching our video and actually taking time out to do so. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Till then, goodbye.